Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Straight Up with Dr. C Love. I am Dr. C Love, and it is my privilege to be here with you today. This is our second episode, so it's still fresh, still learning the ropes, and let's get it started. I want to start today's time of sharing together with an invocation from this book. Can't really see it, so I'll tell you about it. It's titled Loyalty to Your Soul, The Heart of Spiritual Psychology with Drs. Ron and Mary Holnick. Now, this book is a reflection also of a lot of the life work that I've done. I earned my master's degree in spiritual psychology with an emphasis in consciousness, health, and healing. The first portion of it was completed in 2000, the additional study in consciousness, health, and healing in 2002. And in this book that has the foreword by Neil Diamond Walsh, who, wrote the New York Times bestselling book, Conversations with God, he did the foreword. I'll share it with you at another time. But as we get started today, I just wanted to read the invocation, the prayer, but invocation. Lord God of all creation, we ask now that we be filled, cleared, surrounded, and protected with the clear light of the sacredness of spirit. We ask for the presence, protection, guidance, and love of the divine beings who work with each of us. And we ask that any imbalance that may be present in our consciousness be taken up into the highest realms of light and sound, where it may be transformed and used in service. We're so grateful for this opportunity to come together in service to our growth, upliftment, and learning as we assist ourselves and each other on our way home. Thy will be done. So it is. So be it. Thank you, Drs. Ron and Mary. At some point, I would love to get into the work of this program, explaining it. But for now, let's just begin with the invocation. Now, let's talk about what is in the news. What is in the news? So if you watched the show last week, you know that we sent a lot of love and light to this young football player, Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin is not only awake, he's breathing on his own. He is writing and talking and throwing up heart symbols to his team. And he's back in the team's hometown. So he's moved from where that's my Apple Watch. Sorry, you guys. It's always helping, and it's always listening. So that's something to remember. In the news. So he's back home, and we just continue to see this young man healing and getting stronger every day. We know he is somebody that's doing good. The Toy Drive nonprofit or something that he started, I believe it's raised millions and millions of dollars. So people from all over the world are showing this man love. And he said something in his second tweet, he was like, the love you give will come back to you multiplied, beyond multiplied. And already we see that happening, millions of dollars for a program that is close to his heart and all of our hearts as children. It's important that they get to play, because being an adult is not easy. So send light out to that. Also in the news today, Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis Presley's daughter, Priscilla Presley's daughter, she went into full cardiac arrest. I believe it said in the news that her ex-husband was able to give her CPR. Don't know her current condition, but Lisa, we love you. We love you, Lisa. And my family's from Memphis, Tennessee. Matter of fact, you'll hear about it in February. My mother and her sisters and some of the other members, my uncle AP, they're going to come on and share about what it was like desegregating Memphis, Tennessee in the 60s. But in Memphis, Tennessee, Graceland may be on one block, but the love of everybody who loves Elvis infiltrates much of the city. So Lisa, get well, get well, get well. We want to hear from you, just like we want to hear from Damar. Also, people of positive thought, divine thought, we want to think about all of the victims of weather. It's going in different areas globally, but we know in the United States of America, from coast to coast, there have been many deaths in the last 2 weeks related to weather, particularly here in Southern California, or in California, with all of the rain. And see, we're not used to rain, so every year, not like this. We know it rains. And even the song says it never rains in Southern California. We know that's not true, but not like this. I mean, torrential kind of, where's the hurricane kind of weather coming in, and just, doing, as my young people say in the schools of LAUSD, doing the most, doing the most. So this rain has just been overwhelming, and it reminds us that no matter how much, you think you're planning, you don't, a little boy, I believe he was 2, the tree fell on the house and killed this little baby. And, and then the thing about California is it'll have this kind of rain, and then the next day it's just bright and beautiful. The sun will come out tomorrow. It's like, you can't believe the wreck of the wake that was yesterday. So please keep all of the people that are dealing with the weather. The young lady who was in the car, she had left work, I believe it was a Friday afternoon, and she ended up dying Christmas Day. I'm sorry, I can't call the name right now, but sweetheart, may your soul rest in paradise, and your family ultimately find peace. And then what can we learn? And the one thing we know for sure is that when it says love the one you're with, we want to make sure that we are giving that love to the people that are with us, because we don't know, and we don't have to wait for a terminal diagnosis to value each life that's in our world. As philosopher Alan Watt would say, the people that are peopling our world. Also, let's for a minute talk about the nurses' strike. The nurses' strike. Now, wow. I know that nurses love the people that they work with, that they're committed to care for, as much as teachers love their students. So the idea that the situation was extreme enough that they would risk their not only the health of the people that they love, but because they must be at enough risk themselves, they are willing to put their livelihoods at risk, because the livelihoods must in whatever ways have already been at risk. Because I know I've been through a couple of teacher strikes. When my mother, before she retired, after 30 plus years as an English teacher in Los Angeles Unified School District, and then as a teacher myself, I have been here in LA Unified since 1999. We've dealt with strikes. This is not something we want to do. We spend our own money. We work overtime on nights and weekends. We care for the kids. We're the counselor, the mama, the nurse, the motivator, liberator, all of that kind of stuff for our young people. The college recruiter, the career specialist, the athletic coach. We do the most for our students and for our patients. So the fact that the nurses were willing to risk it all to make it better for everyone. I commend you for your strength. Light to everybody who was affected. And most importantly, congratulations to those people who are the decision makers, who decided to listen to their frontline soldiers and step up to protect them. Okay. Also, we're back in school. Some states, we've been still coming out of COVID. If you study history with pandemics, you know that it's at least a year it could be a couple of years, flu years, and pandemics only come several hundred years. Now we can prolong them with our fatigue and trust. Everybody is COVID fatigued, and even those people who've lost multiple loved ones are themselves, even though they see the impact of the danger, are still fatigued with all the COVID protocol. Let's just talk about going back to the workplace. After being 2-3 weeks out of school, with people traveling all over the country, stuck in airports and other confined spaces, able to just breathe whatever they're breathing. It's funny because I started when I had to, when masks were in mandates and teachers had to make sure young people were keeping the mask on. One of the things I used to tell the young people was like, look, y'all, it turns out that the cooties are real. The cooties are real and people are getting the cooties. So we're going to need you to keep that mask on, especially in a closed classroom. And I always wonder, about, how fair, a couple of students, because we know it travels by particulate and particulates get in the air, right? So even if somebody tries to take their mask down for a few minutes, even if the room is empty, there are particulates in the air and you don't know what's in the air because it just sprinkles around. And so I send a shout out and salutes to the school districts across our nation that was bold enough to say, hey, look, y'all, don't get scared. We are not bringing back these mask mandates permanently. We got the message. We know how you feel. We say, it stunts development, young people's development to have the mask on. We hear all of that. But we also realize that development is definitely stunted if people are dead. So let's go ahead and for the first 10 days of school, coming back off of vacation when everybody's been wherever they've been and nobody knows, and we're not doing mandated PCR tests anymore. It's just, some rapid antigen tests. Hope you did it right. Nobody was watching and there's no particular accountability. We're just going to take your word for it. Those school districts that mandated masks, just in case, in an abundance of caution to safeguard the well-being of the young people and the educators that are also on the front line. Because let me just tell you, going into the classroom, being the only person that might be having a mask on, it's like going to the front lines without any safety gear. And again, of course, there's masks, but if I'm the only one wearing it and I got 20 people in my room just breathing everywhere, even when they're not in the room and I take a lunch break and I pull my mask down to eat, I'm exposed. And I'm saying because I'm just here in this forum speaking for people, but let's keep going. Just sending that out. Speaking of education and teachers, I don't know if you heard about the teacher who was shot in the chest by a 6-year-old while she was trying to confiscate this device. I don't know any of the details. She was initially in critical condition. I believe she's in critical stable now. But let's send light to her. I'm sorry I don't have her name right in front of me, but one of the things I've always been acutely aware of as an educator is that usually whenever there's any mass violence in a school, teachers are usually one of the first ones to die, and I always think about that song from Prince, I would die for you. And in communication with the young people over these last 23 years, when I talk about safety protocol and why it's important to follow instructions, if I'm saying exit, duck and cover, evacuate, all of the drills and things that we do. And I remind them, about shooter protocol. We block the windows, get everybody into a secure area as much as possible, no noise, no nothing. Try to turn off the lights, be as least visible when we do our drills. But I remind them that, we know that firefighters run into fire. We know that police officers run towards bullets. SWAT. I watch SWAT. I love SWAT. Love me some Shamar Moore. Shout out. I heard you're going to be a father for the first time at 52. Congratulations to you. But teachers, we have committed to put our lives in front of these young people should danger come their way. And we prove it all the time, because whenever children are getting harmed in those kind of situations, teachers die. Another reason to, consider that when we are being compensated and rewarded and celebrated for the work that we do in this nation. As we speak about education, it's a great segue to the next subject, which is homeless services. Some of you will know, who are listening, thank you so much for tuning in, that prior to moving into education for 6 to 8 years, I worked in the homeless services delivery system, including being chair of the first chair of the Policy Advisory Council for the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority. I was also an executive director of a nonprofit organization. When we opened up the first free 24-hour no-cost LA drop-in shelter in the 90s, I remember one of the first things that the first executive director, Eugene, we call him Gene Boutillier, said to me, and I was young. I ain't gonna tell you how old I was, but I was grown, but I was younger than I am now. Believe that, because it's been 20 something plus years since we were deliberately and consciously moving to solve the problem of homelessness, which Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, a joint city-county agreement, had been created to do. Saying all that to say, when I left there, realizing that the bureaucracy was such that we weren't going to really be able to get much done on the global scale. We'd be able to help individuals, but the prevention of it from a societal issue was not going to happen under the construct. I came across the other day the report that we did right before I left, Making Home Where the Heart Is, at the intersect of community need and new opportunity. And it just says, and I'm not going to name the agency because it doesn't really matter what that is. It is recorded in history. But it says, this first annual report represents our victory in community viability. As an agency evolving from a need of care that embraced the vision, the individuals who have made our organization then the strong symbol that it is, did more than think, wish, or dream about helping the Los Angeles community. We forged through many obstacles, trials, and tribulations to prove that endurance will lead to many successes when the intent is to extend the hand of kindness to our fellow Americans. This effort has gone even further, standing parallel to the lives of the people that have passed through our doors. These many services provided by our caring personnel are simply the means to the real purpose of our existence, finding the place to make the most valuable contribution. Our clients are on a quest for empowerment, stability, and significance, as are we. As executive director, I am grateful to have had the privilege to have witnessed and participated in the progress since I joined in 1992. This organization, from a little office in Inglewood, has stretched to program sites that have reached to the far corners of Los Angeles County. Even though this is my last year, I look forward to the continued success and support of people who understand that to help those who face the crisis of homelessness is an honor. To help those who face the crisis of homelessness is an honor. See, because we are not unhoused. So to be able to help those who found themselves in that position is an honor. Yes, it is. Natural disasters and family disasters that result in a lack of permanent housing and a need for supportive care span every economic level and remains a positive, a proactive response to this critical community need. On behalf of the entire board of directors and all who have given their time and talent, we invite you to turn these pages and enter the open doors of experience the joys, victories, And yes, sometimes the pain of the lives we have touched, we all make the difference. And this is only the beginning. God bless you. Karma G. Henning, Executive Director. That's the name on my birth certificate, Karma G. Henning. So that was all there. And that work that I was doing in the 6 years that I was with with Los Angeles Home Service Authority and working with these nonprofits and all of that, the community organization, South Central Continuum of Care Network, representative with the Los Angeles Regional Housing something and on and on. I even was a finalist for a position on the local board for FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency. I've taken everything I've learned and I've taken it into the classroom to prevent homelessness, which is where we break it. I talked about that, and I will, because it's always there. While I'm talking about it, in 1994, then President Bill Clinton, was working across the nation to prevent this problem of homelessness. And I found in this document that I had written in 1997 called Moving Toward a Continuum of Care in Full Effect, Breaking the Cycle of Homelessness in Los Angeles, an excerpt from the actual document that was prepared under President Bill Clinton's leadership, and produced, printed, distributed by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is also known as, most people just hear HUD. But if you don't know what HUD means, that's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So this is their area. And in this document, this report called Priority Home, the federal plan, that means across the nation, covers all the states. It's a federal plan. So in Priority Home, exclamation, the federal plan to break the cycle of homelessness mandates that we look at the root causes of homelessness. This is a quote, by the way, Priority Home, the federal plan to break the cycle of homelessness, mandates that we look at the root causes of homelessness. This requires that any viable continuum of care have a method, like what's the method? Excuse me, of combating homelessness at the structural level. I suggest it's in large part the classroom if we're preventing it, because that's where there's a cause and then there's an effect. We learned about that in school. Remember that, y'all? Cause and effect. So we can't deal with the effect without understanding the cause. So we have to deal with the effects, but how do we prevent the causes? So we look at the root causes of homelessness. This requires that any viable continuum of care have a method of combating homelessness at the structural level to put systems in place to prevent persons from acting out in a manner, substance abuse, that may certainly result in their homelessness or some other position of government and community dependency. The system addresses each issue at the root as soon as identified. So I'm saying this and sending this out for locally, because our new mayor, Kevin Bask, and the new mayor of Long Beach is also declaring a state of emergency. The Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors are considering declaring a state of emergency. They've already supported LA's plan. I'm sure they'll do the same thing for Long Beach. But now this is for us, and this is also across the nation. So identify each issue at its root. And we know we can't do anything and everything about it immediately. But once we identify it, we can begin to do the work. And luckily, it's enough nonprofits, organizations, people that are officially nonprofits, and people that are doing the work in other capacities within the community, that it would be like, what if we had, I'm just going to make up something. What if we had like a countywide, a citywide, a countywide, a national Google Doc? Okay, Google, I'm giving you a shout out. Google Doc, and I like Word too. So Microsoft Office 360, to have a global document, even if people were moderating it, or some forum where as soon as somebody at that level who's been working knows what an issue is. We put it out there like, 988 is the suicide hotline or suicide prevention hotline. We know 911 is for, well-being, safety, emergency, and there are all these other numbers, 411 for information, 211 for this. And so same thing, can we have some forum where people can go that are professionals that are identifying these issues at its root, can give that information, so we don't have to, we can hear people like Obama's running for president grassroots movement. Let's just get that all documented. And so that those people don't have to go to one particular person or one agency to say, oh, we've identified the problem, and then have to get permission from them or their understanding before they determine what level of attention it should get. Let's just put it all out there and let everybody that's on the front lines and on all the levels, let's all see, let's get into a community conversation at the local, state, and national level about this issue of homelessness. Everyone that's in this any social service industry, written in 1994, released under the administration of President Bill Clinton, Priority Home, the federal plan to break the cycle of homelessness. Now, speaking of that, when I used to run my agency, I loved it. We just had so much fun. And I always, like, a lot of people don't know this, but the streets are filled with a lot of artists, sensitive people who have so much to give and share with us if we're listening. So much to share with us if we're listening. And they, I had one student, and I write music. I write it literally. I can't play it. When I was a little girl, my grandma Henny, she used to try to teach me how to play the piano. And I was stubborn. I didn't want to practice for anything. And it turns out I'm a writer that can't play the piano. I mean, I can do what I do. But anyway, so music comes to me, and they're messages for my life, just like the movie Wiz, which I saw as a stage play, a musical, when I was 6 years old with Stephanie Mills. It's always like, ease on down the road. Life just comes. I just get that little hook. And then, so when I was working in this agency, it said, come on home. And I changed the last words. I'm not telling the agency, but I'm going to change it to, come on home to love. Yes, to love. Yes. So that's all I had. And one of my clients who was staying in the place, saving money, and we were helping him get on his feet through case management services and whatever. He played the piano or played the guitar, and he used to write. And I was like, can you help me? Can we turn this into a song? And I was like, this is all I got though. And I was like, come on home to love. Yes, to love. Yeah. And then, some time passed, and he's like, they used to call me Sister Karma back then, because everybody, when they came into my community center, one of the first things I told them, I said, look, you are not homeless because you have a soul, and your body is the home for your soul. So you're not homeless. You're without permanent residence, without permanent housing. And that's why this term unhoused, I get it. And it's better than just saying the homeless. Absolutely. But and to reinforce the concept that we were all family, everybody in my shelter community center, we called each other, Sister Chris, Sister Pam, Sister Chris, Brother Chris, whichever it is, but that we were family. And speaking of that, before I finished that song, remind me one night, and because we were 24 hours, we were available. I remember I was there working on some reports and so on and so forth. Had already made sure everybody was tucked in for the night. It's like 100 and some people, and I'm working, and the doorbell rings, and I again remember I was young and just full of all of the promises of what JFK said: ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So even when I was attending the University of Southern California, go Trojans, still I was in service mode for the community because these grants were all coming through at the same time, and I was responsible. But this particular night, I remember, and I opened the gate, and it was an older man, probably at least twice my age. And when he came in, I opened the gate, I gave him I said, welcome. I didn't attack him. I said, welcome, open my arms, and to give him a hug, like, welcome home, you're safe. Welcome, to this home. It might not be permanent home, but it's a home in this moment. Anywhere you're living and you're safe and your head is covered, it's home. So I said, welcome. And I didn't think anything about it. It was instinct, like I was walking into my grandparents' house at 2860 Shady Oak in Memphis, Tennessee. Everybody's welcome. That's how my family's always been. And this old man started crying. And, kind of scared me. And then when he found his voice, after his the throat cleared up, he said, I haven't been touched in so long. I was beginning to believe that I wasn't even human anymore. And in that moment, it flashed to me, or in reflection at least, because in that moment I was present with him. How even if I give sometimes, when I over the years, I've given change to people on the street, and I'll drop the change from a distance, just making sure that I don't even touch them, put my hand over them, and da. So even if they were getting some community support, like, how could it be that somebody could go so long without being touched by another human being, that they were beginning to feel like they weren't human anymore? Quick flash to the classrooms where we're all afraid, teachers, we got to be so careful, even just put a hand on a student's shoulder to be like, you got this, you all right, you can do this, those things that coaches do, and this, that, and the other. We always have to work from this position of fear and retribution, honestly, or just not being able to sustain because we showed too much of our hearts and our natural human instinct to be there for one another. But the song, so I told him, come on home to love. Yeah. So he came back and he said, I got the song. I got the verses. And I know it's around here somewhere. I can't remember all of them, but I remember this first verse. And it said, when you're walking around and haven't had a thing to eat, you're tired and lonely and you need a place to sleep, drop on in, we'll give you service with a smile. You never find another place for miles and miles around. He held out the note teasing me. So come on home to love. Yes, to love. So shout out to my people, to my street soldiers, to my warriors. I love you. You hold it down. I don't know how you do that and keep doing you and living. And if you stop and talk to some people, a lot of these people are people of faith. They will tell you about the goodness of life. It'll blow your mind. They out in the tent in the rain and this, that, and the other. But these are our family. Priority Home, the federal plan to break the cycle of homelessness in every city, impacting every tent, the effect, and prevention in the classroom at the root of the causes. All right, so that's all that. Now, we know that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. So we're gonna need some backup. And I came across this book in my library. It's written by Kobe Bryant. I believe they said his t-shirt where he won the championship, or his jersey where he won the championship, it's about to go on sale. he did something like 650, 75 points within the series or the season or something like that, 14 games, and won this, won that, everything. But we know who Kobe is. Nobody has to, all you got to do is say Kobe. Everybody knows who Kobe is. This young man, when his father was playing overseas and he was the only person or very few of his ethnicity, he harnessed his difference. He buckled in. He learned mastery. And with his mastery, he came back and he invested it in the love he had for the Lakers and the city of LA. He could have gone anywhere, done anything he wanted to do, but he gave up the love for 20 years, LA, representing the purple and gold until the end. But he was also a writer of children's or middle school or young folks books, the fantasy books. If you don't know that, look at that. We know about the athletic center for the young people. We need more athletes that are, when he was dying, everybody always tell you, we're going to pick it up. We're going to keep it going. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So to the athletes, to all the pro athletes that got these millions of dollar contracts, I'm not going to tell you sponsor a teacher, make sure her tuition or student loan is paid or his student loan is paid, adopt a classroom. I'm not going to ask the professional athletes that are throwing away millions at strip clubs and different things that they could do without. We're not talking about need, we're talking about want. But if you also care about making the world a better place, maybe you'll adopt a teacher. Maybe the national organizations can sponsor something like that, and teachers can submit the work that they are doing, and it can be a competition. Let these athletes that, what they say, if you can read and write, and if you made it to pro ball, you better thank a teacher, because I know for certain there was times you were tired from practice and you weren't doing everything you were supposed to do. And a teacher held your hand and walked you through and helped you make it. So we need you to take that hand, reach back and help the teachers, because the teachers are the ones on the front line at the root cause of homelessness. And teachers cannot be afraid of becoming homeless themselves and having to work 2 and 3 jobs. I'm just saying, you all do what you want to do. It's your millions. Our names are not on the contract. But we like, what's that team, Verizon, like, who got you? We got the people on behind you, the teachers in that group. So help a teacher out. But Kobe, the Mamba mentality, how I play it, I'm going to be looking at over the time, just bringing in some things. And again, we're going to be doing interviews, live shows. I have my reasons for not doing the live show today, but I didn't want to miss this moment. So in his book, Kobe Bryant, The Mamba Mentality, How I Play, one of the first areas he addresses is process. And so I just want to read this excerpt real quick. It says, when it came to basketball, I had no fear. What I mean is that if I wanted to implement something new into my game, I see it and try incorporating it immediately. I wasn't scared of missing, looking bad, or being embarrassed. That's because I always kept the end result, the long game, in my mind. I always focused on the fact that I had to try something to get it. And once I got it, I'd have another tool in my arsenal. If the price was a lot of work and a few missed shots, I was okay with that. As a kid, I would work tirelessly on adding elements to my game. I would see something I liked in person or on film, go practice it immediately. I notice he keeps saying that. Practice it more the next day, and then go out and use it. So I would learn it, study it, look at it again, study it more, and then implement it. So that's kinesthetic, put it into practice. By the time I reached the league, I had a short learning curve. So it was ready for life. The work was ready. I could see something, download it, and have it down pat. Oh, sound like what was that? Matrix? Oh. From the beginning, I wanted to be the best. I had a consistent craving, a yearning to improve and be the best. I never needed any external forces to motivate me. During my rookie year, At first, some scouting reports said I wasn't tough. The first time I went to the basket in games, I'd hit and the defense would think they had me. I'd come back the very next day, the very next play, and pick up an offensive foul just to send them a message. I didn't need that extra push to be great, though. From day one, I wanted to dominate. My mindset was, I'm going to figure you out, whether it is Al, Tracy, Vince, or if I was coming up today. LeBron, Rush, Steph, my goal was to figure you out. And to do that, to figure those puzzles out, I was willing to do way more than anyone else. That was the fun part for me. That's from Kobe Bryant. The Mamba mentality, how I play, straight up. So how are we as a community going to play? Let's fix this issue of homelessness. How are we going to play? What are we willing to do? Are we willing to deal with the causes and not just the effects? Because right now, a lot of the focus is on the effects, but we have to get to the causes if we're going to prevent it. Just like 1994, when the federal plan, the priority home came out, we were still dealing with the effects and not the causes, and only dealing with that in a fragmented social service delivery system. So 20 years later, this is what we've got: tent cities all over America, in different neighborhoods, regardless of the income level, especially in Los Angeles, wealthy areas all across the city. Tents there just as they are everywhere else. So that's that. One of the other things, straight up, is when I was running the homeless shelter community center, I used to do a program called Renew I call it, I was making up names and things, so the, acronym city and all of this, but Renew, it was educational services. I realized with my clients that, okay, now I'm getting them ready to come back, but they had gaps in their education and social services, community awareness, and I needed to get them ready for life. So we used to do workshops and just talk about, mental health and all of these things. And it was before they were big community slogans. And over the years, I came across somebody, not then, I believe this book was published after, but I want to highlight each week, just if I touch up for a moment, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, originally written by Stephen Covey. And then his son, Sean Covey, did a rewrite, an adaptation for teens. So it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. I've been using it in my classrooms for years. But I want to talk about the first habit just this week. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But the very first habit is be proactive. Be proactive. What does it mean to be proactive? It's like, get in front of it. Take responsibility for your life. What's going on? What do we need to do? What has to be done? Or accepting that we are responsible for our individual lives. We are responsible for our communities. Everything is up to us. We can get a little bit more into detail about that, but in lieu of time, in consideration of time, and there's a couple other things I wanted to share with you. That is something that we look at. So habit number 1, be proactive. So that's a self-assessment. It's a self-assessment. It's a community assessment. Even if it's like, what does my child's school need? That's an assessment. If you belong to any community organizations, what do they need? What can you do? Just ask the question. If you're a person of faith and you've been working, that faith without works is dead. So what are we doing with it? So taking a look at that. And now this is fun. So I have these meditations for life reflection cards from Bishop Noel Jones. If I just say Bishop Noel Jones, most people of faith know who he is. So in his reflection cards, one of these, they say, learn to fish. And that, I'm sure that comes from, of course, the biblical thing, but also there's a saying that says, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach him how to fish, and he eats forever. So how can we teach these young people how to fish instead of giving them everything? Straight up. And then it says the subsequent message of this learn to fish is the greatest gift you can receive is one that keeps producing when the giver is gone. And how important a time it is as we come to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. Happy birthday to you. We celebrate the work that he's done. The greatest gift you can receive is one that keeps producing when the giver is gone. How can we, as an educator, I'm always thinking what tools, like Kobe said, I put that in my arsenal. When I'm in there, I'm like, what can I put in these kids' arsenal? Because I already know this world is, we own one. As the saying goes, if you're listening to the young people. By the way, if you have young people in your life, it might be of value to listen to them. Then, so thank you, Bishop Noel Jones, for that message. Lastly, as I begin to round this up, I want to end this on a really, fun note, just like with my student, or just what I learned with my client family member, and us writing that song together, Come On Home. I had the same experience with one of my students, Joshua Ayala. The song is called Journey Forward. And he wrote this song, and it was really about being depressed and hopeless. So he had the whole rhythm of the song and everything else. And it was just talking about being tired, feet hurting, hopelessness, like, have I ruined my life, and things like that. And then I just said to him, I was like, you know what? He was like, what, Dr. C. Love? I said, this is a question. Let's answer it. So I gave him my teacher response. So that first verse he wrote, the second verse I wrote, the hook, for every stress and there's a blessing, and for every pain there's a gain. You got to break the chains and bear the strain. You came to reign. For every lesson there's a blessing, and for every pain there's a gain. You got to break the chain and gain and bear the pain. You came to reign. So anyway, I wrote it, and I was just thinking about the things that at the time when I wrote that, it was just like the things that sometime in life we face. And so then that was included in the song. And then so together, Joshua Ayala and I, we wrote the final verse. So you'll see the progression if you listen to the lyrics. And Trinity, one of my darling gorgeous, I hope she's modeling somewhere and living her best life. Trinity, I love you, girl. Dr. C loves you. And Joshua, I thank you. And he wasn't really doing a lot of singing at that time, but this young man is gifted. So I hope somewhere, somebody, if he's making himself visible, because his light is so bright, is doing the work that he loves, which is music. So I hope he's not in survival mode. And I hope he sees that I'm still thinking about him and celebrating the opportunity to have synergized our light to create something that stands the test of time. So we're closing straight up with this little music video that we made in my classroom within LA Unified School District during our break, lunchtime. And straight up, another great episode. Again, we will have live shows. It's still moving forward with all of this. And then the final thought is taken from 101 Bible Promises. Joyful is the person who finds wisdom, the one who gains understanding. Proverbs 3:13. Dr. C Love, I love you. Here's the video. And may we always journey forward. Straight up.
This is Dr. Sheila, and this is Trinity.
Hi.
We wrote a song called Journey Forward. I hope you guys like it. They ask me what I feel and I just turn my head and walk away. It's hard to tell what's on my mind. I can't spell out the words to say. It may take some time to realize that you've been wrong. We have to fight through these bad times, so they seem long. Counting my footsteps, walking down the street, feeling so exhausted, I can barely feel my feet. All the days I could have been are slowly haunting me. How can I possibly escape this tragedy? They ask me what I know and I pull out a chair and take a seat. It's hard to say what's on my mind. I know it's time to stop and think. It may take some time to right my wrongs, learn my lessons, hold my head up and be strong. Counting my footsteps, I'm running down the street, feeling the vibrations tingle in my feet. All the things I came to be, and destiny's finding me. I'm journeying on to create my own reality. For every session there's a blessing, and for every pain there's a gain. You gotta break the chains and bear the strain you came to reign. For every session there's a blessing, and every pain there's a gain. You gotta break the chains and bear the strain you came to reign. They ask me how I got here and I walk the stage to engage. I reach the brink, I'm soaring to my peak. I took the time to think and change my life and live it long. Learn my lessons, hold my head up and be strong. No more counting footsteps, I'm dancing on the street, feeling elevated, come and celebrate with me. All the things I came to be are now my new reality. I'm journeying forward, oh how I love my destiny. For every session there's a blessing, and for every pain there's a gain. You gotta break the chains and bear the strain you came to reign. For every session there's a blessing, and for every pain there's a gain. You gotta break the chains and bear the strain you came to reign. They ask me how I got here and I think, why are you? They ask me how I got here and I think, why are you? Thank you. Thank